Hey Narayan Sami, you have access and you could log in, all good, right? Okay, Ganesh, I'm giving you access to share screen.
Sorry, can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sarunan, yeah.
Phone. Okay.
Hey, anybody else here who doesn't have access yet? Shami, Jagdish, Anurag, yesterday you all had access and you could log in, right?
Yep, Jay.
Super. Good.
Yes, Jay.
Fantastic.
Hi Jay.
Hey, welcome, Suren.
Agree and connect.
We will start in another 5 minutes. Oh, okay. So you got access, right?
Yeah.
Super. So you can click on that cluster name and you can connect to that. Click on that Virtusa dash cluster, please. In the middle, like it's a cluster name, Virtusa dash cluster below. Bottom of this, yeah, still below. Yeah, click that, please. And next is you need to click connect to the console. Yeah. Anybody else who is not talking, please mute. Okay. Click on connect.
Sorry.
Top right. Click on connect in the top right. Connect. Yeah. Okay. Click on run in Cloud Shell, middle of this thing. Yeah. For all the people who joined now, is there anybody else? Click on continue. Saranan? Yeah. For anybody else who has joined now, I hope everybody has got access for whatever Ganeshan is trying to do now. Anybody not having access, let me know. I'll give you access immediately now so that you can start working on it.
Jay, yesterday I tried and I also got the same access problem.
I see. Okay. What was the error?
It was asking like the request is not granted or that kind of privilege, access privilege.
I see. Okay, I will look into that. You can click got it. You see that? Yeah, click got it and press enter. Click on that number and press enter. Authorize. Okay, awesome. Can you type the two commands which I've typed in this chat window? The commands are, can you type kubectl get? Yeah, in this chat window, I've typed few commands, right?
Yeah, 3 comments I know.
Correct. Can you please type those one by one? I'll start in another couple of minutes after assisting. Mulayam, can you mute yourself or I'll mute you? I've muted you. That's a typo. kubectl, there's a T, additional T in the middle.
CTL.
Yeah, you have to use backspace to come back. kubectl, KUBECTL. Get nodes. This lists the nodes on which this is running, basically.
Yeah,
okay, 3 nodes, right? It was set up 23 hours ago yesterday. Okay, so you are good. You can go ahead and type those 2 commands. Suren, if you don't mind, can you please share me your screen?
Jay, you continue.
Yeah.
You just continue.
Okay.
After this session, I'll take.
Okay, sure, no problem. Thank you very much. Okay, so today, what I'm going to do is, give me a second.
I'm going to stop the screen share.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you all see my screen here, our today's session is going to be building a Docker container. See, as we discussed, Kubernetes is actually a container orchestration. Developer's job is to package the whole application or a microservices or a binary into a Docker container. That if a developer can do that, then 95% of the job is done. Then the developer's job is to just create a simple YAML file, 10 lines, 20 lines, 50 lines. And then with that YAML file, if you type kubectl apply, then this Docker container, which has got the application, will go and run in the Kubernetes cluster. That's it. So the developer, whether he or she is a Java developer or a Python developer, Node.js developer, or a PHP developer, or Go developer, whatever the developer was developing, her job is to continue to develop in the same, in whatever the programming language, whatever the framework they're using, they can continue to develop. After the code is typed out in a whatever IDE you are using, then your job is to package it. Just create a Docker file, which we are going to do now. Give me a second. Let me mute everybody
Jay?
here. Yeah.
Jay?
Yeah.
Like one basic question.
Yeah.
You have created the cube cluster, right?
Yeah.
A test bed here for this cube cluster with 3 nodes, right? It was listing 3 nodes, right?
Okay.
Like, is there any specification on like or like what should be the size of the cube cluster, etc.?
Okay. See now, to answer this question, maybe I should start drawing, or let us park this question for now.
Yeah, no
Okay.
issues, no issues.
That is like,
Like, I
2
just
steps
wanted
later.
to clarify
Make a note.
that one point.
Because that is actually a big topic. If you see here at the bottom, if you are still seeing my screen, you see
Yeah.
here cluster, auto scaling, and HPA.
Yeah.
So the whole cluster, how do we auto scale the whole cluster? The cluster should have 3 nodes or 3000 nodes. How do we know?
Okay.
And even inside the cluster, there is a concept of horizontal pod autoscaler. See, at a node level, should it be 3 or 300? We don't know. That we have to optimize and auto scaling we have to do. The capability of which is a default Kubernetes capability, which let me show it here quickly. See now, this particular cluster, we scaled it only to 3 nodes. Right? Number of nodes is 3 because it's just a test cluster. But obviously, now it's a 3-node cluster, only 300 users are using. What if 3 million users come? Then obviously, the node cannot be 3. So at a cluster level, what we can do is we can say minimum 3, okay, and we can say maximum, like say 100 or whatever the size we want to have. Right? So that configuration we can do at the whole cluster level. But then
and says you can enable auto scaling. Here the option is enable auto scaling.
Correct. Right? So let us say we are now enable auto scaling. Minimum number of node 1 and maximum number of node, I'm putting 10 here for now. Okay. So I by default it's a capability, but then for now I'm just using. It's going to update the cluster. Now, if more load comes, Kubernetes and Google Cloud Platform, it will add more load automatically, auto scaling. Okay. Fine. But the second part of the story is that is not sufficient, because let us say my application. So there's like, let us say 10 separate applications are running in Kubernetes. 10. Okay. So now how will you know whether this application should have 2 pod or 20 pod? That configuration is done at the horizontal pod autoscaler. When you deploy any application, you can say, okay, minimum there should be 3 pods, maximum it can go to say 100 pods, based on when the CPU usage of this deployment is above 80%, and if the memory use is above 80%, add a pod, right, until 300. So it'll keep on adding a pod, and then if the CPU usage and the memory comes less than 60%, it will peacefully remove a pod, keep on removing a pod. So when your application usage goes up and down, Kubernetes cluster based on the horizontal pod autoscaler HPA, it will scale up or down of your particular application, because you're going to have multiple applications and in Kubernetes cluster.
Jay?
Yeah.
Jay? You say horizontal and vertical, right?
Yeah, there is also a vertical pod autoscaler.
I understand. If my understanding is correct, increasing the cluster size is horizontal and pod is vertical, or vice the other way?
The other way around, in a sense. But
am I wrong?
No. That is in a sense correct. Horizontal and vertical, you can say. But then to add confusion, there is also a vertical pod autoscaler. What it will do is it will increase the size of the pod. Let us say I've given each pod should only take 1 CPU and say 1 GB of RAM. Okay, 1 pod. Okay.
Okay.
Now, if I want to increase, I can just keep on cloning it. Or I can also add, okay, suddenly there's more load. Let me add pod which has got 2 CPU and 2 GB of RAM. Right? So that is three ways of you can
Okay.
cluster auto scale, and the whole capacity scale up and scale down from the application point of view, or the whole pool of the cluster point of view, you can play. All those capabilities are inbuilt capability of Kubernetes. Because when people, I mean, when Google thought of Kubernetes, they thought of all these things. Okay, like my one application can scale up and down. What do I do? And then maybe it suddenly goes up and down. What do I do? And then the whole of the cluster goes up and down. What do I do? So all those problems they've solved, and that is called this is cluster autoscaler, horizontal pod autoscaler, vertical pod autoscaler. All those things we will cover later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey Jay,
Yeah.
this is Satish. I have a quick question.
Please.
So we typically use Pivotal Cloud Foundry to deploy our microservices in our current project.
Fantastic.
So there is this concept of auto scaling in Pivotal Cloud Foundry as well.
Correct.
So I'm just trying to understand what exactly is different when we deploy application to Pivotal Cloud Foundry versus to Kubernetes. I mean, what are the advantages or disadvantages of both these things?
Correct. See, even before Kubernetes cluster or container orchestration came, Pivotal was a big deal. Pivotal was an awesome idea. The way Pivotal Cloud Foundry, Pivotal is a company name, Cloud Foundry is the product name, right? The Cloud Foundry was an awesome tool for auto scaling, automatic deployment, everything they have done awesome. Okay. But unfortunately, they were so well ahead of this curve, somehow they were not successful. So in the world, few companies use Cloud Foundry. Still, it is awesome, no doubt about it. But then for whatever reason, it did not pick up. It did not become famous. So then what happened was, this is little bit my point of view, nothing official about it. You know, Pivotal's Cloud Foundry was bought by VMware, and VMware also bought another company called Heptio, which had two co-creators of Kubernetes. There are three creators in Kubernetes mainly who worked at Google. Two of them created this company called Heptio, and another person, I think Brendan Burns, he went to Azure Cloud. Okay, so now these two people created a company called Heptio to sell Kubernetes, obviously, but then VMware bought that company, and then the other company VMware bought is Pivotal, which had Cloud Foundry. Now VMware decided to support more of Kubernetes, and because Cloud Foundry did not become famous, they are not supporting it much, unfortunately. So if you look at a big picture, not much companies use Cloud Foundry, even though personally it was released before Kubernetes and it has got its own awesome capabilities. This is the whole story, but both are container deployment and an orchestration tools. Okay, so they are similar, but not. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to understand, like, just is
both are container orchestration tools.
Yeah, both are container orchestration only. So what are the additional advantages that we get if we use Kubernetes versus Pivotal Cloud Foundry? So
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that understanding.
Okay, I'll give you a quick update. You know, the ecosystem of Kubernetes is listed here. These are all the list of companies and the products which works with Kubernetes. Okay, so one of the big differences, if you have Kubernetes, there is like hundreds of or thousands of companies across the globe use Kubernetes, and you have all these tools which you are using. So the ecosystem is huge in the sense, so if like in the world, if like, there's like 10 people are using this Cloud Foundry, there will be like 500 companies using Kubernetes. So even if you have a problem, if you want to Google, it is very easy to get help. And then even for Kubernetes, there's like thousands of companies who will provide you services, and It can scale up to a big level, and every vendor, like all cloud vendors, support it. So the ecosystem is huge. That is one big difference, I would say, why anybody want to choose Kubernetes over Cloud Foundry.
So
okay.
it's like Kubernetes is something that has to be supported by the individual cloud provider. So
no,
so
they provide support.
Okay.
See, Kubernetes at the end of the day is a free and open source software, right? You can download the source code, you can install it in your laptop, on your premises data center, or you can install in public cloud. But as I'm not, are you attending? Did you attended this meeting yesterday?
Yeah, I did attend it.
Did you see how easy it was to create a Kubernetes cluster? In 3 minutes, we created this Kubernetes cluster, right?
Correct.
We did not start from scratch. This is supported by Google, complete Kubernetes cluster. And for this the first Kubernetes cluster, we don't even pay money. It's like free. The money we are going to, Google is going to charge only for these 3 nodes, because they're like Linux servers, right? At the end of the day. So only for this, we have to pay money, whatever it is, right? The whole of Kubernetes cluster is free. It is running for us. Like you can, the first cluster is free, and even the subsequent ones, they're only like 10 cents per hour. And then one Kubernetes cluster can scale up to thousands of nodes. Like even for a large enterprise, one Kubernetes cluster is sufficient. You do not have 10. Okay. So this much ease and this much help is not available there. And okay, let me show you this Lens IDE. Okay. Unfortunately, this Lens IDE might not work from some of your laptops because of your security reasons. I'm not sure. Maybe you can all test it out. There's a small chance it might work. Okay. So now this Kubernetes cluster, which I set up, if you look at this graphical user interface tool, you'll get the idea that what I mean by ecosystem and the support. Okay, this is a beautiful graphical user interface. You see, of my Kubernetes cluster, right? Now this tool, like somebody just developed a few months ago. I'm a huge fan of this tool. For my work, I use this tool because with this tool, you can see how many deployments are there, what pods are there. And then just for fun, let me show you that I can go to any of this pod and I can read the logs, right? And I can scale up and scale down, and I can look at the nodes and I can see where it is running. This is a simple, beautiful tool, which was developed by a company and given free and open source software. So if you want to start with Kubernetes, there's like 100 tools and companies and ecosystems. Your life is easy and smooth.
Okay.
Okay. So that is one thing I can say. Even though both are container orchestration, this has picked up, and there is like, humongous support you will get. Okay. I have lots of good friends in Cloud Foundry, by the way, but that company did not become as famous as Kubernetes, unfortunately. Yeah, Suren?
Jay?
Yeah.
Jay, it's again a next silly question.
Yeah.
If you have created this Kube cluster in the Google Cloud.
Google Cloud, correct.
Yeah. What should I do if I wanted to have my Kube cluster in my premise? If I have a cloud in my premise.
Okay. See here, you see certified Kubernetes distribution.
Okay.
Right. You can. Yeah. This is like, see, in Linux.
Yeah, it's an OS. Like I understood, it's like an OS.
So download.
I need to have that environment in my cluster.
Correct. Take 5 or 10 Linux machines on premises, and download Rancher. Okay. Rancher is a free and open source on-premises Kubernetes cluster, and this is my favorite, by the way. Rancher. Like last 2 companies, I installed Rancher, and in the current company, it took me I take 10-15 Linux machine, and it take like less than 1 hour to set up my own on-premises rock solid Kubernetes cluster up and running. Beautiful. They got user interface, they have dashboard, everything is inbuilt.
Like again, another question, Jay. If for this testing purpose or for teaching purpose, going for Google Cloud, and
it's a choice.
We have a fear.
Correct.
We have a fear of that, whether it will be running, the resource will be there, will be charged. So it's again another way that I can build my own on-premises a Kube cluster and do all plumbing.
Correct. And it is very easy. Just take plain vanilla Linux machine, and I have simple documentation in I would say like 30 minutes. You can set up a 20 node Kubernetes cluster on your premises using Rancher.
And that can be given that can be remote access from others. Like if then somebody is attending out, it can be accessed.
Correct. It is your own Kubernetes cluster which can be accessed across the globe securely.
Fine. Okay. Got it. It's clear.
Thank you.
So the very first understanding we need to get it here is that it's much like Kube is much like an middleware or OS for cloud orchestration.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, OS for sure. It is like becoming the Linux of cloud.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah. And like there's like funny naming.
And again the same question, like as yesterday we had from Gauri. The other friend has talked about this Cloud Foundry.
Cloud Foundry is also an awesome tool.
Yeah,
I like it, but then it did not become as successful as Kubernetes.
Okay. Visual person.
Thank you. And
so, sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead, please.
So Kubernetes is something. So I mean, for example, if I just take my current design, my current way of deploying it.
Yeah.
I create a jar file or something, and then I take it using my CI/CD pipeline.
Yeah.
It gets deployed onto Pivotal Cloud Foundry.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And now with whatever sessions we have gone through, we have created a Kubernetes cluster in Google Cloud Platform.
Yeah.
And we are going to create a Docker container, and then that will be deployed onto that cluster.
Correct.
So this cluster concept, the Kubernetes cluster. So it is something that can be created in any of the cloud platforms.
Correct. It's a free and open source software. So, it can run anywhere. It's like Linux. It can run anywhere, wherever you want it.
It can run anywhere, but my question is more like, we have created a cluster, right? Within 2 minutes or 3 minutes, we have created a cluster in Google Cloud Platform.
Correct.
So does Google Cloud Platform has to do anything to give us this ability, or is it inbuilt across all the
Satish?
cloud providers?
It's inbuilt.
Satish, excuse me. That was the question I was asking to him. You can, like, as the very first understanding we need to get here is, this Cube is a platform. It's an open source platform. It's much like Linux. It can run in Android. It can run in a tab. It can run in a laptop. It can run in a cluster on premise, or it can run in a cloud. Sir was telling about Rancher. With this Rancher, you can create a Cube platform in your premises.
Yeah, I understand that it is open source and it can run anywhere. But what I'm trying to understand is, all these cloud platforms are there, right? AWS or Google Cloud Platform. So do they have?
They also have their own versions of Cube. Yesterday he was telling about
supported version,
Amazon
which they
also
support.
has EKS. Azure provides Kubernetes support. This Amazon supports EKS, and Google also has their Cube service.
Okay, so now just to add that, if you see this is what we covered in the first session, right? You can have on premises. Okay, there's like 20 distributions.
Satish, did you get your query solved?
Yeah. So I understood it.
Satish, just to add on to that, see, you can, Kubernetes, where does it run? On premises, there's like 20 distributions like Ubuntu, like SUSE Linux, like Red Hat Linux, like CentOS Linux, you can have on premises because it's like free and open source software. Now you say, okay, no, I don't want to install Kubernetes. I don't want to manage it 24/7. I want to run it on Google Cloud, okay? Or Amazon Cloud, or Azure Cloud, or IBM Cloud, Tencent Cloud, DigitalOcean Cloud, Oracle Cloud, right? Now, what those vendors have done is they said, okay, we will give you free cluster for you. We will set up, our engineers will manage it for you. We will set up, but we will charge you for the compute anyway, for the node, right? So that is the story. So you can go and choose. If you are a Amazon customer, you're already using Amazon, there's a thing called EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service, which you can create in 3 minutes, and you can scale it as big as you want, 1,000 nodes, 10,000 nodes, and you only pay 10 cents per hour. We are using, I needed a lab to set up. I chose Google's Kubernetes engine, which is part of Google Cloud. See, if you go to Google Cloud, they have thousands of services, right? See here, if you see, let me go to the home page here. See, now if I see in Google Cloud, what all do we have? We have Compute Engine. You can have 1 to 1,000 servers, and then VMware Engine. Cloud Run. Cloud Run is like Lambda, if you know, Amazon. And Cloud Functions, App Engine, File Store, Cloud Storage, Data Transfer, Bigtable. All these things are there, right? In Google Cloud, you can have your own VPC, and you can have firewalls and monitoring and logging. And for CI/CD, you can build and deployment. You can have your own registry. And like for big data, like there's like more than 100 services Google Clouds provides, right? One of the services is Google's Kubernetes Engine GKE clusters. And why they are providing? So that it is convenient for us. I don't want to go to Google Cloud and create 10 servers and install Rancher and all those things and upgrade and manage. I might not have those skills. So what Google thought is, okay, we will give you free Kubernetes engine, like complete, awesome, rock solid Kubernetes managed by Kubernetes engineers. They will support it. They will take care of it. Health, it is up and running. Everything they will feed and take care of it. But for the nodes, we have to pay money, obviously, right? For the nodes. So this is the story of me choosing a Google's Kubernetes engine for the sake of training and demonstration purpose on Google Cloud. But then even in my previous company, I've used GKE for our Kubernetes deployment, because I don't want to take the headache of setting up my own Kubernetes cluster, because I know I'm not smarter than Google engineers. Right? Why should I set it up if Google engineers on Google Cloud can take care of it? But the first one is free and the second one is being only 10 cents per hour. That translates to around $800 per year. For any North American customer, $800 is what they'll be paying one engineer per day. Right?
Satish?
So we will,
Satish?
so I decided to use GKE even for my large customer in North America last year. So, but then you have to make a choice. If you really want to, but on your premises, then obviously there's no GKE. Then you have to think, what should I do, right? And your on premises, there's 100 vendors who will come and install or give their software to install. Kubernetes only. See, everything is Kubernetes only. It is like bottled water. Water is free. You can go to your well and you can go to the river, you can go to the ocean, you can take as much as you want. Kubernetes is free and open source software, but not everybody will have the skills to set it up and support and patch and upgrade and all those things, right? So that is why like Red Hat and SUSE and Ubuntu, you have multiple distributions. You can download and use them for free also. Or if you really a large corporation, where millions of dollars are dependent on it, you don't mind paying like few $100,000 per year for these vendors to give you a 24/7 support, right? So these are all the choices.
Okay. So sorry to take
no problem.
time,
This is needed. The thing is, this knowledge, the fundamental is needed. And honestly, let me also tell you one more thing. I am more interested in your questions than covering the syllabus. I can take more time if you want. It is because two reasons. Kubernetes knowledge is like, lots of knowledge is available. To give you an example, I have this 100 playlist for Kubernetes, right? And for example, this playlist has got 52 videos. There is humongous amount of knowledge if you sit and Google for Kubernetes, right? There's lots of people telling, but then I want to focus on this training so that your personal questions are clarified, which might not be available in any Google or whatever, right? So I welcome the question as much as the classes. So please, let us take as much time as possible. Go ahead.
One more question. So I have only working knowledge of Pivotal Cloud Foundry. I don't have much knowledge about other cloud platforms.
Okay.
So
if you know how to drive Maruti, you will know how to drive Ambassador.
Yeah, so
that's all.
I mean, I'm just giving you my background so that you can answer.
This is awesome. You are well ahead of 90% of the people in the world, because lots of people still don't know container and then container deployment. You are already there. You are ahead of 90% of the people in this world who wants to go to Kubernetes.
Okay. So my question is, so for example, if I have a microservice and I want to deploy, and I'm assuming that Pivotal Cloud Foundry also supports Kubernetes. Let's make that assumption, because they can also do that, right?
No. Let us not complicate stuff. Let's not complicate stuff. See, wait. They are another type of orchestrator, and Kubernetes is another type of orchestrator. But for both of them, the core is the container. Okay. So the developer builds the container, which contains all the code, which contains the business logic, right? Or the functionality, capability, whatever. Now the container, you can take and create YAML file or whatever you can deploy. You can deploy it in Pivotal's Cloud Foundry. Okay. Let us say it is 100 lines of YAML. Similarly, if you rewrite a similar 100 lines of YAML, then your container can be deployed in Kubernetes. Okay. So now let us not mix and match this deployment, because it's unnecessary. Either you're running there or running here. And if you're running there, you may have to migrate it here. You may have to rewrite those 100 lines of configuration files, which is not rocket science, right? So let us not unnecessarily mix these two container orchestrator. Either you are going in Maruti or Ambassador. You are not going in both at the same time.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
So, for example, let's not take Pivotal Cloud Foundry example, right?
Okay.
So, on Google Cloud Platform, I'm assuming that you can deploy your microservices just like you deploy onto Pivotal Cloud Foundry.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I have that option, and if I also have the option of using Kubernetes cluster, right? So, I mean, both are same thing, right? Both are provided by Google Cloud Platform only. And I can deploy my app to either that or to Kubernetes cluster, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, on what basis do we have to decide whether we have to go with the Kubernetes cluster or we can deploy directly onto the Google Cloud Platform? Did I make my question clear, or
no?
You did not
See,
get
you see.
Yeah.
No. Wait a second. I just want to hear that question again. No, it's okay. I will.
Yeah, my understanding. It's again the same question as we were asking yesterday.
No. Wait, Suren. I'll come to you. The question is, he's comparing Google Cloud Platform with Kubernetes. Is that so?
No, he's asking about what will make me, or how should I decide to go to Kubernetes?
Okay.
Why should
What's
I?
the other choice?
Why should I?
What's the other choice when compared to what?
Satish, do you mean that?
Yeah. So, as I said, I have only working knowledge of Pivotal Cloud Foundry, and I'm assuming that the same features are available with the Google Cloud Platform as well. So, if that is the case, then if I have the
Why
option
should I go?
if I have the option of deploying my microservice to Google Cloud Platform.
Hold on. Wait. What is Google Cloud Platform? Let me share my screen again here. Google Cloud Platform, you are using it as one word. It is not one word. It is 150 services. Okay. When you say Google Cloud Platform, that word means there is retail solutions, there is game servers, there's Redis, Apache, Kafka. There's like 200 services are there. Okay. Now you have your container. When you have your container and your application, you're not going to deploy it on a game server, right? And you are not going to use vision video intelligence for your application. You are not doing speech to text. So you are not comparing, like, you are comparing ocean with a fish. Okay. Google Cloud Platform is the ocean. It has got like 200 services. Now you are saying, can I compare this fish with the ocean? That's not a right comparison. That's why I want to, be clear with the question.
So without bringing Kubernetes into picture,
yeah,
can I deploy my microservice to Google Cloud Platform?
Yes, you can. Okay. See, one of the first services Google had was Google App Engine. We saw here a few minutes ago, right? So yeah, let me just go back here. See, Cloud Run. If you have a container and microservices, you can use Cloud Run and you can use App Engine. App Engine is one of the first services Google had. So if you had containers and if you want to deploy containers, even in Google Cloud Platform, you can use Cloud Run or App Engine, for example. Okay, and it is like Lambda and many other services in Amazon, and everybody has got, this is like serverless. I have a container, I want to run in a cloud, and I don't want to have any, like, Kubernetes engine or Cloud Foundry. I don't want any of those things. I just want to run my one container. Okay. Then you can choose, if it is Google Cloud, you can choose Cloud Run or App Engine, which are all like, it's called like serverless, like container deployment and running. And in Amazon, there is like Lambda and many other things, container as a service and all those things. Okay. Yeah. So you have lots of choices, but then that is like only one container you want to run or multiple, right? You will not have any freedom. Whether you're using Cloud Run or this thing, they'll only have few specific container images. If you say, I want to run my own, then it's not going to be that easy, or it is going to be more complicated.
Jay?
Yeah.
Jay,
One second.
this is for-
Suren, I'll come to you. Let us finish with Satish. Satish, is that clear?
Yeah. So basically, you're saying that even without bringing Kubernetes into picture, there is a way for us to run our microservices.
Correct.
But we might not get all the advantages that we are getting using
And freedom.
Kubernetes.
Correct. And the freedom. Like in Cloud Run, you will have only few images. Like let us say you have to run Ruby on Rails, for example. Now in Cloud Run, they might not have the choice. They'll only say, initially they only supported, I think, Java, Go, and Python, for example, right? So then you are limited. And then there's lots of other complications you have to do there. So in a limited way, you can do that if you want. It's a choice for sure. Kubernetes is not the only thing. Even in the cloud vendors, they have run containers on a fully managed platform. So it's a choice. But then your freedom is also limited. You will have more constraint. But then Google is giving you a choice. Okay. And also there's a vendor lock-in. If this runs on Google Cloud, you cannot run it on your premises. The same thing. Because Cloud Run is specific to Google Cloud only. The same code will not run on, say, Lambda in Amazon Cloud because it is different. Then you have to change your script and code and redeploy it in a different way. But if it is running on Kubernetes, then it will run exactly the same, whether it's running on your laptop or on-premises, public cloud, hosted, managed, whatever.
Even across the multiple,
yes.
Even across multiple cloud platform vendors.
Yes, because Kubernetes is one. It will work exactly the same way, whoever supports it, wherever supports it. If it is different, then they'll call it as Cloud Run and Lambda and blah, 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 whatever they can call. The name will be different. But Kubernetes is only one, which is managed by CNCF, Cloud Native Foundation.
Okay.
That's the guarantee Kubernetes has got. So it's like Java, write once, run anywhere. Kubernetes is like that. If your deployment and the container runs on your laptop Kubernetes, it will run on a server, on a Google Cloud, multiple cloud, whatever Kubernetes is there, anywhere in the world.
Okay.
Okay. Any other question?
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm happy.
Yeah,
I want it to be interactive, and I want to, bring the confidence in you and the clarity in you immediately, right? Because technical learning, anybody can learn. You go to YouTube, go to Google, you can learn. But then these are some of the questions you don't know whom to ask, where to start. So this is where I want to clarify and give you that direction or that clarity with which you can go with your passion and knowledge and skill. You can go wherever you want to go. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
so
Jay,
who's next?
I have one doubt.
Please.
So in my microservices, I have DB configurations are there. DBs like Cassandra, MariaDB, a lot of DB configurations are there.
Correct.
If I deploy the application in Kubernetes, will it connect to that DB or not?
Absolutely, and awesomely, because actually this Cassandra and all, if you see, it is the NoSQL type of database, right? It is made for cloud native. So a Cassandra will run better on Kubernetes than a Linux machine, because it's like cloud native, auto scale up, scale down, all those things are an inbuilt capability of Cassandra, right? So a Cassandra database will run on Kubernetes better than running it on Linux.
But that will be in the different clusters, not in the Kubernetes, right? So how will it connect?
Okay. See, now to connect to a database from an application, whether it is on-premises or Linux or Kubernetes, an application will connect to a database using a connection string. Okay. Correct? You only give a connection string, and connection string will contain what is the database server IP address or the host name, what port it is connecting, and what is the credential. Okay. Now let us assume your application, like millions of people are connecting, huge applications running on a Kubernetes cluster, and obviously you can set up Cassandra also on the Kubernetes cluster. And if you in the application configuration, you will say this is my Cassandra and it is going to connect. Easy, no problem, right? But let us assume your Cassandra is running on your premises. on your data center, because you have credit card details, personally identifiable information, and lots of security restriction and legal restrictions. Okay, you don't want to take Cassandra database to the Google Cloud or GKE or any other hosted solution. Okay, but my Cassandra is running on premises on Linux servers, let's assume. Okay, now from your GKE, you can open a firewall port and allow for your Cassandra servers all the IP addresses where this Kubernetes is running. And then in your application, you're going to say, this is the connection string. And you're going to say the IP addresses of your Cassandra cluster. So it is just an IP. In the world, google.com is an IP address. From anywhere in the world, you can connect if the firewalls is allowing you, right?
Yeah. So that's what microservice will support lot many features like securities, circuit breakers. So many features are there. That will allow into this Kubernetes, all those.
See, the whole idea of microservices is like hugely supported in Kubernetes only. The idea of microservices is, see, earlier it is all monolithic application, and if you see, mostly monolithic application in waterfall model is what people created 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? Now, microservices is possible, okay, mainly because of Kubernetes these days are cloud native, automated CI/CD pipeline and all, right? So microservices itself is like, is becoming famous mainly because of Kubernetes. Because in Kubernetes, you can deploy microservices very easily, right? So the whole microservice idea is becoming famous, I would say, only because of Kubernetes. If there's no Kubernetes, then people will still be writing monolithic application, waterfall, wait for 3 months to get requirements, 3 more months to deploy. But in Kubernetes, you can deploy 10 times in an hour.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Pleasure, sir. So this whole idea of microservices is made possible mainly because of Kubernetes. Okay. Questions. I love questions.
Jay?
Yeah.
Jay?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that of these three days or 4 days of silly with the silly questions and brainstorming, and you are trying to clarify. Let me put this, Satish, and the conversation the other way. He was asking about a decision. Yesterday we were talking about the thing. Satish, you say you have a customer and you give him, he comes out with the solution, he comes out with the problem requirements. You say you wanted to do a cloud deployment. You say, fine. As of now, Amazon gives me this particular feature. I'll just do it in Amazon. If what happens 3 years down the line, if Amazon is going to charge you more for that service, other things. If you wanted to move to Google Cloud. Satish, are you here?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Correct.
So at that particular point, it is safer thing if you are putting this in your cube, you can on the fly, you can migrate it from Amazon to Google.
Or Azure, or Oracle Cloud, or DigitalOcean Cloud, right? See, now let us assume you want to run like Cloud Run, right? As we saw earlier. Okay. Now, 6 months later, Google might say, hey, look, I'm doubling this price. Or I will only allow this, and this I'll start supporting. They can say, or let us assume somebody chooses Lambda, which is very famous in Amazon Cloud. Now, as an infrastructure architect, I will say, let us be hesitant before getting locked in to any technology of any vendor. I want portability. Today, I want to run on this cloud, and 6 months later, if somebody else gives me 30% discount, I want to go there. I don't want to be tied down with this cloud vendor, because this vendor lock-in, I hate vendor lock-in, because they'll keep on jacking up the price. Like if you see Oracle, they will initially start, little bit, and then they'll say, okay, you have to pay $1 million. Otherwise, we will not. Our licensing ends. Now, if you're locked in with Oracle, there is no escape route. Okay, because the migration will be $5 million. then you will cry, and then okay, you will pay $1 million. But then that vendor lock-in is what you should always be cautious. See, going to cloud is fantastic, all good. But then if there's a choice, even if it costs upfront like 5% more, choose a product which is like I've got cloud portability or vendor neutrality is what I would say. Is what I think Suren is also conveying now.
Jay,
Yeah.
It should be insisted more. It should be, because we are in a school of thought, because where we are working is, it is like we don't work on an enterprise scale. We don't have a long-term vision on where this application will go and where this market will go, and etc.
Yeah.
So we are not in a phased, systematic way.
Okay.
And we don't see, as I told you yesterday, is like when now Satish is talking, he is used with Cloud Foundry, and me and Gauri are used with Lambda. And we don't think that what happens if Amazon is charging more, and we don't know whether Kubernetes is giving millions of options much better than Cloud Foundry or Lambda, and this is the safe way that it gives me all features in a click. It's easy to customize, and it is easy to port me also across.
Yeah. And
so this vision we didn't have, as because of our exposure.
Correct.
Limited exposure of what development we do, or kind of the scale of developments we do, and we are not aware of, like we are not connected with, as you do with KubeCon and other things, even with the ecosystem. Looking into the ecosystem and the promises, we get to know it's the real thing. So that should be the carry away thing. The very first thing that I understand here is that it is yet another Java. Cube is yet another Java for cloud.
Correct. Or Linux, we can say, because this is the platform on which everything runs on.
Yeah. It's like is the same problem as we had with applications development, app developments in the 90s and 2000, where that different platforms doesn't give you your application to run. Java came out with their JVM, like, oh, don't worry, just write your code here and it runs everywhere. Now here with cloud, everyone is logged with putting the container and running it in. What do you mean by the custom proprietary cloud provider? What happens if I wanted to run it across uniform across all the cloud, even in my own premises? Cube is the only way.
Yeah, and after 6 months, I might even decide to come back to on my premises.
Fine.
Right? Because 6 months later, what if, or like 1 year later, what if you have ARM microprocessor which you are getting cheap, right? And actually, cloud is not cheap. In the sense, see, cloud has got auto scalability. Like you can have one server in the evening, 100 servers, next time morning, one server. But it is not cheap. On premises, many times will beat for many of these compute requirements. If you densely populate, and surely if you have Kubernetes like stuff, on premises many times cheaper. It's a choice.
And again, another question. If we understand very clearly, say that we have our own, we have invested on our own infrastructures, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And then like we have we call proprietary information, what do you mean by the sensitive information?
Correct.
And we don't want to move to cloud. Such kind of enterprises should definitely, or the cube is only the option for them.
Correct. Whoever was using Linux all these years, they will migrate to Kubernetes.
Got it. And the from the open source perspective, or like the aspirants, much like us, this is what is the business, right?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Like for aspirants who wanted to dive into cube,
this
is what is one promising business.
Not one, all promising ways lead to Kubernetes.
Got
from my point of view. And Kubernetes, because of its auto scaling capacity, it will save money also for you, because if you have Linux or non-scalable or not easily scalable infrastructure, you are wasting lots of money, right? So Kubernetes, I've seen myself save so much money. because you can easily pack it. Like if you want only 3 nodes, it will only use 3 nodes. If you want 300 nodes, it will use 300 nodes in the evening, and it will scale down next day morning, or whatever way you want. Okay, so there is money saving, ease of deployment, and sysadmins can sleep
and it is
portable.
Jay, and it is, by the way, it's a last option for them. Like they don't have a like நான் சொல்லுவேன் வேற வழி இல்லாம e-case provide பண்ண வேண்டியது இருக்கு Amazon, because there is a chance that the guys who are in Cube will migrate, right?
Correct. Yes, Amazon.
So they don't like
whether it or not, they have to give a Kubernetes service, because then if they don't give, they'll go to everybody everywhere else.
yeah. The question is that as like why that there is not such very penetration into Cube is these cloud providers inherently hate, with the fear that once you have a Cube, if I increase my
there's no lock-in. They cannot lock in.
Yeah. That should be the choking point for them.
Correct. They don't have a choice. They have to support Kubernetes also, otherwise they lose business. But then if they support Kubernetes, then they cannot lock in those people.
Yeah, you cannot lock in. Fine.
Yeah. See, now time is already what, nearly 9 o'clock now.
Yeah, Jay.
So I have to end this session soon. I know.
It was really an eye-opener.
Correct. Okay, so now there's only 1 more minute. See, this is what I want to cover. And just for the information to you all of you, I've step by step, whatever you're supposed to do, I've documented here, and I've tested it in my command line also. So the homework for all of you is follow this only this much. Build a Spring Boot Java container following this line, and
we are not seeing your screen.
Sorry.
Jay.
Thank you very much for letting me know that. Last 1 minute. I'm giving you homework now. Do you see my screen?
Yes, Jay, visible.
Okay, thank you. See, now the homework till tomorrow for all of you is build a Spring Boot Java Hello World container based on this link here, which I've shown. And in this link, how to, because like I've heard most of your Java developers, so I've created this Spring Boot Java with the help of a couple of your teammates. In this README file, I've shown every command you have to type, and step by step, I've shown git clone this, cd, and change this line, and then build this Java hello world, and then log into Docker and build the Docker file locally. And yeah, this is the command to this thing. And the password, you know what? Let me type it here for you all, because I don't want to share it to this public. The password for this Docker login is what? Okay, I typed it here. Please make a note of this. You will need it when you type this command. Where is this command? Okay, Docker. Yeah, when you type Docker login username kubetrain, you will need this password, which I've typed here. Make a note, and then you have to build it here. And then after build, you can run it, and you will be able to see this hello world, welcome to the world of ... And then you can push it to Docker Hub. And when you push it to Docker Hub, you should be able to go here and log in with that username and password. And you should be, okay, I missed a H. You should be able to see, yeah, you have to log in with this kubetrain and this password. You should be able to see these two. See, I built this 5 hours ago and 7 hours ago. You should be able to build like I built Spring Boot demo Jairam. So each one of you should be able to build whatever Spring Boot -demo, whatever your username is. Flask also you can do the same way. So follow this 2 sections and build these 2 Docker files. This is the homework for all of you for tomorrow. Okay.
Yes, got it.
Any other
Yes,
questions?
Can I copy those links from
It
here?
is in this
or-
website, right?
Okay.
If you go
Please
to
share
this
me the
screen
website.
share.
Hello?
Okay. Yeah.
Share me the link, this website.
I've shared this link also in the chat.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Jay.
Okay. I've done here step by step, and I've tested it all like 6-7 hours ago. Like this Flask, right? Git clone this one, and then cd to this folder. Then you can edit this here, like edit this line if you want, with whatever content you want to have, because it is just a hello, like it just gives a message. And this is the command to build, and this is the command to tag it, and then and then you'll see that image is there, and then this is the command to run it and test it, curl, and then this is the command to push it to the Docker registry, after which we should be able to see. Okay, awesome.
Jay,
yeah.
here one concern is there.
Yeah.
Hi, Jay, this is Karim. Actually, we are unable to access the GitHub. So we Virtusa blocked this site. So
GitHub is not
you
there,
can
is it?
check for the another. Yeah, yes, correct.
Okay, so how do we do this? I will give it this in GitLab. You have access to GitLab, right?
Yeah, that will work.
Okay,
correct.
I'm going to upload all these things in GitLab. Okay, let me do that now. Yeah, so if anybody want to log off, you can, but if you have any other work, but otherwise, I am going to upload all this code to GitLab, and I will change this link. Then you should be able to get these. Okay, so now this is Flask-Python. Should I have the same name, or is any name okay? Okay, let me create a new project. Import a project from, wow, this is awesome. Import a project from GitHub. GitHub repository. Personal, okay. Awesome. Okay, so now what do I have? Awesome. All the guys are visible here. So the first one was Flask. Okay. Import. Super. The second one was Spring Boot. Okay. Import.
So Jay, this morning I joined little late, like 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
Okay.
Were there any other than yesterday's comments, kubectl, get notes, and all those things?
Nothing,
other than
nothing.
that, anything?
No.
Okay. So what one concern I had is my Virtusa machine is not allowing me to still what do you call connect to the Cloud Shell editor. So all I repeated the same steps in my local I mean my own personal laptop. Then it worked. However, this is not allowing me in Virtusa. I don't know whether it is something to do with the Virtusa.
No, it is not Virtusa, because see, if other of your teammates can connect, so it's only your laptop is the problem, right?
Yeah, I still see that establishing connection to your Google Cloud Shell is still there. So I'm it's not a very big issue, but I'm just saying whether if it.
See, if this problem had to be there for everywhere, I would have been concerned.
Correct. Yeah, right. Okay, no problem.
Okay. So now what I am doing is I'm GitHub repositories. This is Flask Python, that is Spring Boot. Okay, so now luckily I could so quickly make this change. Okay, if you all refresh this screen and if you go back to this page, Karim,
yes, Jay.
can you please go back to this page and refresh this? And you will see GitLab also. GitHub is here and GitLab is here. So if, yeah, use GitLab. Hey, you know what? Okay, yeah. So this is for your reading purposes. So this readme.md is there, right, in GitLab?
Yes.
So you see my screen, right? So this readme, you can copy paste this command or type or do whatever you want to do. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And that git clone that you can do from GitHub itself, because from Google Cloud you can connect to GitHub, correct?
Okay.
Okay. So now can one of you confirm to me that you can see the updated values and you can go to GitLab?
Yeah, I'm able to. Jay.
Super. So now nobody can stop you from deploying these containers, right?
Yes.
You're all unstoppable developers. Okay. It's good talking with you all, because I'm also learning, in parallel with you all. Because see, I see the world only from my point of view. When you ask me a question, I see the world from a different point of view, which will enrich me. So thank you very much for asking the question, and we'll keep learning.
So one quick question, Jay.
Yeah.
So how, in order to set up the Kubernetes on my local machine, what are all the prerequisites I need to have?
Do you have a Linux machine?
Okay.
That's it. If you have Linux machine, there is a dozen ways to set up this one, and I'll show you. If you go to, again, this page is I always refer. See, if you see here, you see Kubernetes distribution, certified Kubernetes hosted, certified Kubernetes installer.
Okay.
So if you go to this installer or this distribution, depending on how big your laptop, whether you want to have virtual machines or you have only one virtual machine, there are multiple ways how you can set up Kubernetes. Okay. See, you can also set up this K0S, which is very tiny. And K3S is, oh, you know what? Oh, I don't know if some of you knows. K number 8S means Kubernetes, because there are 8 letters between in K and S, right? K0S is a small Kubernetes. K3S is like little bit bigger, but smaller than K8S, for example. And this is K8S plus. Okay. And this is micro Kubernetes. This is from Ubuntu. So if you have a Ubuntu machine, in like 1 minute, you can get this micro Kubernetes up and running on a Ubuntu machine, like your own Kubernetes on your own Ubuntu Linux desktop or a server, like what I'm having here, right? So you can spend some time and choose. There are so many options for you. Rancher is a little bit bigger, okay? And VMware Tanzu is huge. And Rancher OpenShift is also like is one of the biggest, I would say. Okay, so you have so many choices. You can choose any of these things, spend few minutes and what you're comfortable with, and you can do this. Okay, so yeah, you can. I strongly recommend if you have any access to any Linux machine, go and set up your own Kubernetes on the Linux machine. In only one Linux machine, you can set up a whole Kubernetes cluster. You don't even need multiple Linux servers.
Okay, so so the number of cores and all, is there any specific number of cores
No.
required,
Just
or?
like a quad core with like 4 GB of RAM is just sufficient.
Okay.
You don't need much.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay.
Pleasure. Anybody else? Okay, if not, let me stop the recording and I'll update